My name is Joshua. I was born and raised in North and I just spent 4 years living in New Haven, Connecticut, on the east coast of the United States, where I was studying my undergraduate degree at Yale University, and also had a brief trip to the UK for a semester abroad at Oxford University. So the application process in the US is quite the undertaking. It's a little bit overwhelming and stressful, and it's very understandable if you're feeling some of that. I definitely did. And it means that because it's such a long haul, you probably want to make sure that you're quite motivated and this is something you really want to do before you dive into it. And I should also mention that unfortunately it's actually the case that applying for universities, just the process of applying, can be quite costly because you need to pay an application fee to each individual school. Then you also need to pay to take tests and need to frustratingly pay to send the tests to the school. And the more schools you apply to, that kind of adds up. So that's very unfortunate that that's the case, but you probably want to make sure before you spend too much time and energy and money that that's something that feels like a feasible and worthwhile investment for you. The US universities like to say that they want to create this really interesting student body that can kind of change the perspectives of each other. And I have to say that to some extent they're successful with that because you really do meet a really diverse range of really interesting people. So I think a main tip I would say is like really be original and like and I mean in the literal sense, like if you read if you Google Harvard personal statement and you think there's a really good intro sentence, don't copy it because there will have been 1,000 other people who start with the exact same sentence. So yeah, and the easiest way to be original, as cliche as it sounds, is to be yourself. Think about what makes you you, and see if you can somehow get all of that into 400 or 500 words on a page. So the SAT is one of those standardized tests you have to take. I should say that these things tend to change from year to year. So my experience from 4 years ago might be outdated, so you should definitely look into what exactly your school is asking for. And some schools might not ask for the SAT. But basically, in my case, I took a general SAT, and then I took 2 subject tests. And the subject tests were optional. I was given the advice that it was a good idea to take them. I did really poorly on them, and didn't want to send them in, but did send them in. So I honestly don't know what the right answer is, whether you should take them or not. I guess my experience is maybe you should take them. As for the general SAT, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, you're at a huge disadvantage because the American students and some of the other international students you're competing against, they've been studying for this for years of their life. In the US, it's a really big part of going to high school is studying for the SATs, for those kids who have the chance to go to college. And so you're just not going to do as well as others did. So my SAT scores were in like kind of the bottom of among students at Yale. And the good news is that the admissions offices are aware of this. They're aware that international students might be at a disadvantage, so they won't treat it exactly the same way. Particularly if the rest of your application is really strong, it's possible you can get away with a lower SAT score. The letter of recommendation is the one thing in your application that you don't have complete control over yourself. You need someone else to help you. And for that reason, it's really important you start out early. So you don't want that your application is due on December 31st and your teacher hasn't submitted it yet and it's New Year's Eve and you have to talk to your teacher and get them to submit it. You don't want that to happen. So be out really early, contact them 3 months before they need to do it, check in with them when they forget, because they will forget, so you can make sure you have a bit more control over that process. The second thing is that the people you're asking, whether it's your teacher or a coach or even a friend, depending on what the school wants, they will not be very familiar with that process. So Danish teachers probably haven't written that many letters of recommendation, and if they have, it might not have been for the US. So, and I mean, it's your application, so you want to make it as easy for them as possible, and you want to put in that groundwork. So you really got to kind of look into what should these letters look like. How long should they be? What should they include? what tone should it be written in. So in Denmark we have our famous jantelov, whereas in the US people like to talk in kind of bolder terms and kind of maybe use slightly stronger adjectives to describe people. So you want to have a conversation, a dialogue with your recommender to tell them, you know, what it is that you're looking for. Even though, of course, it has to be their recommendation, it is, I think, perfectly fair and fine for you to be involved in that process so they can shape it in the right way. So about extracurriculars, so this is a big part of the application, and it's something that's quite different from the UK and Danish systems. But extracurriculars are a big part of your application, and so the best piece of advice is ideally you want to maybe think about that quite early. If it is that you're only applying a few years down the line, start thinking about kind of what you can invest your time in to make yourself stand apart from the crowd. And then once you're in the stage of writing about them, I guess it's kind of a combination of you want to seem impressive and accomplished, but you also want to seem genuine and like it's something you did just for the sake of it. So yeah, you gotta find that balance between, on the one hand, highlighting that you did something that's really extraordinary maybe, or that you spent a lot of time on it, but also, you know, and hopefully this is true and you can truthfully say that you did it because you were just really into it and you're quite passionate about it. I think it's important to realize that luck is a big factor, and go for it and throw your name in the hat and see if you are fortunate enough to kind of get a spot. But also think about it as an adventure and as an opportunity, and if it doesn't work out, there's all that passion that you had about studying abroad and the things you learned about yourself in that application process, you can hopefully channel towards something else. And then the last tip I will give, it's more actually a request, which is if you get assistance from some of these communities trying to help others study abroad, and you get fortunate enough to go abroad, then it would be really nice if you can help pass it on. So that could be to other Danes, by joining one of these volunteer organizations, or it could be through Project Access, helping people of very different backgrounds all over the world, also pursuing their educational dreams. And it's really meaningful for me that there are so many people who helped me get where I am, that I couldn't have done it without, to kind of be able to also pass some of that along to the next in line.